Notice something kind of weird? The people who are the most desperate to make money, they often struggle the most. The ones trying the hardest to find a partner, they stay single. It's a total paradox, right? All our lives we're told to want more, to try harder. But what if that very advice, the thing we think is our fuel, is actually a trap?
It's that awful feeling, isn't it? Like you're spinning your wheels in the mud. You're putting in all this effort, but you're not going anywhere. And you think, okay, I just need to push harder, hustle more. But that just leads to more stress, more desperation, and the same results. Here's the truth. You're not losing because you're not trying hard enough. You might be losing because you want to win too bad. I mean, let's just look at the playbook we've all been given. It's on posters. It's what every success guru preaches. Be ambitious. Never give up. Hustle harder. And on the surface, yeah, it sounds like the perfect recipe for success. But what if this script we're all following is actually a hidden psychological trap designed to keep us stuck? So before we can fix this, we have to diagnose the problem. And the problem has a name: the desire trap. It's this self-feeding cycle that feels a lot like being a hamster on a wheel. You know, you're running faster and faster and faster, but you're not actually getting anywhere. So let's break down how this cycle actually works. It all starts with a really strong desire for something. A promotion, a relationship, you name it. That desire creates intense anxiety about not getting it. That anxiety then fuels this frantic, almost desperate effort. But that kind of energy often leads to mistakes and burnout, which of course results in failure. And then what happens? Our desire gets even stronger, more desperate, and we're right back at the beginning of this vicious cycle. You know, psychologists actually have a name for this feeling. They call it the hedonic treadmill. The idea is, the more you get, the more you need just to feel satisfied. Your baseline for what makes you happy keeps shifting up, so you have to keep running, endlessly chasing a feeling of contentment that's always just a little bit out of reach. You think you're chasing success, but really, desire is chasing you. I heard this story about a young entrepreneur who was on the edge of failing. He was working 16-hour days, pitching anyone who would listen, spamming social media. I mean, he was doing everything the hustle culture playbook says to do, but it wasn't working. And why? Because his desperation was just radiating off of him. His energy screamed, I'm needy, I'm desperate, I need this sale. And that energy, that neediness, it repels success. It actually pushes people away. So if trying harder is the problem, then what in the world is the solution? Well, it's not about giving up. The answer is a 2,500-year-old secret. It's a piece of wisdom that completely flips our modern idea of success right on its head. This comes from the ancient philosopher Lao Tzu. Because I do not compete, no one in the world can compete with me. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. That sounds passive, right? Maybe even like an excuse for being lazy. But just stick with me here, because some of the greatest minds in modern psychology, people like Carl Jung and Martin Heidegger, they studied this idea and realized it's an incredibly powerful strategy for success. So it's really important to understand what not competing actually means. It is not about giving up on your goals. It's about giving up your desperate, white-knuckled attachment to the outcome. It isn't laziness. It's about stopping yourself from forcing things that aren't meant to be. This is the principle of Wu Wei, which is often translated as effortless action. Okay, so what does effortless action even look like in the real world? It's not about doing nothing. It's about working from a completely different place inside yourself, a place of calm, of focus, of non-resistance. It's the difference between trying to fight the current of a river and just flowing with it. Here's a perfect way to think about it: the dating analogy. Person A is in that striving mode. Their whole mindset is, I have to win this person over. And their vibe? It's needy, it's anxious, it's a little forceful. But then you have person B who is flowing. Their mindset is, you know what? I'll just be my best self, and what happens, happens. Their vibe is confident and calm. Now, which person is more attractive? It's person B every single time. That state of not competing, it's naturally magnetic. So why does trying too hard backfire so badly? Well, a few big reasons. First, it gives you tunnel vision. When you're obsessed with one outcome, you miss all the other, maybe even better opportunities sitting right next to you. Second, it messes up your actions. You're not focused on the task, you're focused on the result, and that's when you choke under pressure. And third, it turns potential friends into enemies, because you start seeing everyone as a competitor. And this isn't just philosophy, this is backed up by modern science. A 2022 study highlighted in Psychology Today found that athletes who don't fixate on winning are actually more likely to get into a flow state, that peak performance zone where they play their absolute best. By letting go of that desperate need to win, they paradoxically increase their chances of winning. And it's not some niche idea from the East. It actually lines up perfectly with what some of the most influential thinkers in Western philosophy and psychology figured out all on their own. All these brilliant minds arrived at the same truth. The philosopher Heidegger said we don't create the path, we find it. The psychologist Carl Jung said true wisdom is about cooperating with your inner self, not controlling it. And the writer Alan Watts gave us the perfect metaphor. Life is like sailing. You don't fight the wind, you learn to use it. You work with the forces of life, not against it.
Okay, so the theory is powerful, but how do we actually do this? How do we stop competing when every part of us wants to? Well, I've got a simple 3-step toolkit you can start using today to escape that desire trap.
These 3 steps are all designed to shift you out of that desperate future-focused mindset. Let's start with step 1. Just ask, and then what? When you feel yourself obsessing over a goal, like I need to get this promotion, stop and ask yourself, and then what? Well, I'll make more money. Okay, and then what? I'll buy a bigger house. If you keep asking, you realize the desire is a moving target that never actually leads to lasting peace. It exposes how hollow the chase really is. Next up, step 2 is all about pulling your attention from the future result back to the present moment. The next time you feel that anxiety creeping in, shift your focus. So instead of worrying, will they sign the contract, ask yourself, how can I communicate genuinely in this one meeting? The only thing you can actually control is your action in this exact second. Let go of the result. Just do your part well right now.
And finally, step 3 is about defining your enough point. Laozi said, the greatest disaster is not knowing when to stop. And think about it, modern society has no concept of enough. There's always another level, a bigger house, a higher salary. That is the hamster wheel. So take some time and really define what enough looks like for you. It gives you a destination, not just an infinite road of anxiety.
So, after all this, it really just comes down to a single choice. The average person is focused on fighting for a result. The master is focused on creating a state of flow. From the outside, they might be doing the same exact things, but their internal operating system is completely different.
Laozi knew this advice would sound strange. He even said, true words seem paradoxical. If you tell someone not to try so hard, they think you're telling them to give up. If you tell them not to focus on winning, they think you're discouraging them. Our instincts scream at us to compete, to grab, to control. This wisdom goes against everything we feel and everything we've been taught. So that's the final question for you. In a world where everyone is scrambling to get ahead, where hustle is glorified and competition is the default, are you brave enough to take a step back? To let go of that frantic struggle and just flow? Because the person who does that, the person who takes that step back, is the one who can finally see the whole game. And that's the person who truly wins.